The 23rd Psalm. Please join me if you know it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Ecclesiastes teaches us that for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. I'm honored to have the opportunity to share a few of my memories of Elyce with all of you. Elyce was one of the kindest, most caring souls that I have ever had the privilege of knowing. She was warm, compassionate, and loving, and she had a special way of connecting with people, making them feel listened to and truly heard. We first met Elyce when we moved to Omaha, and she immediately embraced Jared and I and opened her heart to us in a special way that only Elyce could do. She gave us an anchor here, enveloping us in love, and quickly made us feel like part of the family. Elyce played such an integral role in making us feel at home in Omaha. We loved celebrating holidays together and looked forward to Hanukkah dinners and Passover seders, especially her special garlic and cheese dip that everyone devoured well before it was actually time to eat the festive meal. We loved seeing her holiday decorations, She always had special plates and napkins and placemats for every occasion. It was at Hanukkah dinner last year that we shared with her that we are expecting Robbie, and the smile that lit up her face will be forever imprinted in my memory. Once Robbie was born, she loved getting to see him and hold him and watch him grow. It filled my heart with such joy to watch her interact with him and see him get to know her and experience the kind of love that only Elyce could give. Our world, like all of yours, will not be the same without Elyce, but we are profoundly changed for having known her and loved her.
Cantor Shermitt writes, Elyce was one of the first people I met while interviewing for the cantor position in 2001, and she came to meet us bearing gifts. She always bore gifts. She was what my mother would have admiringly called gracious. Anytime she was herself hosted, she brought flowers or food. She opened her home to congregants on a regular basis, hosting young and old alike. Elyce was steeped in and completely committed to Judaism. Her driving passion was to educate our children as thoroughly as possible, while making it fun and engaging. She loved the temple children, the Azriel campers, the OTYG teens, and any baby she could find to cuddle. Elyce was also very attuned to those who were in any way ailing, and was a very present and helpful partner in letting us know who might need a personal touch. I'll let others speak of her absolute love for her family in general, for Leora, Yaniv, and the grandchildren, but we all saw it. And as for her partnership with Aryeh, any clergy spouse knows how hard this particular job can be. Yet she had her own expertise and her own accomplishments. She and Aryeh were a team, and I'm stumped, frankly, at having to use the verb were. Elyce will never know how much I learned from her, and I thank her for all the lessons and kindness over the years. Never have I seen anyone handle health adversity with such grace. May her memory be a blessing to all of those, including me and my family, whom she touched. In December, when I had a concert, Elyce told me that she, like myself, grew up with the composer Max Janowski in her synagogue. And this piece, Sim Shalom, A Prayer for Peace, by Max Janowski, was one of her favorites, and I am happy to dedicate it to her memory today. Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen
Elyce's passing is a terrible loss for the Temple Azriel family, and for so many others in the Jewish world beyond Omaha, too. In places like Chicago, where she grew up and studied as a child at Congregation Beth Tikva under the mentorship of the legendary Rabbi Hillel Gamron. She began her career as a Jewish educator there, too, and returned to Chicago later with her new husband, then a young, lovable, but relatively unknown Aryeh Azriel, where they both taught Hebrew and worked with the youth at Congregation BJBE with Rabbi Mark Shapiro. I've received notes from a number of congregants there recently and over the years too, expressing how fondly they remember Elyce and how deeply she and you, Rabbi, touched their lives during their formative years. Her passing is a terrible loss too in places like Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, at Osrui, where Elyce founded the Merkaz Ivrit, the Hebrew Center, which sits right in the heart of camp, and where, thanks to her passion and dedication, children continue to learn a love for the Hebrew language. And of course, here at Temple Azriel. My goodness, the love for Elyce in this community is boundless. Words are barely adequate enough to capture it. Our congregation and our Omaha Jewish community have lost an incredible soul, one larger than life, and at the same time so intimately a part of us, and so inextricably bound up with our lives. This congregation was her life. Judaism was her life. Her family, her community, all of you were her life. Elyce was, as our sages put it, one who served the community l'shem shamayim, not for any recognition or personal gain, but purely for the sake of heaven. Rabbi Azriel, you told me there's a text from the Bible that's been running through your mind the last few days, a verse from the prophet Jeremiah. Thus said Adonai, I accounted to your favor the devotion of your youth, your love as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness, in a land not sown. Rabbi, you remember after you and Elyce got married, you stayed in America for a year so that she could finish college. And then you and your young bride went back to Israel together to live on a reform kibbutz there called Kibbutz Yahel. It was in the middle of nowhere, seemingly at the edge of the world. As in Jeremiah's words, it was like a wilderness, a land not sown. And she followed you there. And from there, she followed you back to Chicago, then to Cincinnati for rabbinic school, then to Baltimore for your first congregation, and then here to Omaha. You said there were times early on when she'd get angry with you because in following you from place to place, she thought maybe she would be unable to fulfill her mission in life. But as life unfolded, she came to understand that she was fulfilling her mission every single day in every possible way. Teaching the children, welcoming those who were lonely and in need of friendship into her life and into her home, visiting the sick, comforting the bereaved, serving this congregation with her entire being. She did it with grace. She did it with compassion and generosity. She did it with love. As you put it, Rabbi, she was a true Rebbitzin in the traditional sense, like her role model, Judith Gamron. She was one of the last of her kind, and you said she was so proud to be a Rebbitzin. She loved being an instrumental part of the temple. She loved hosting congregants in her home for Pesach Seder and Shabbat and other holidays. She was a superb chef. The smell of bread filled her kitchen. Leora, you remember the succulent Cornish hens every Friday night. And the presentation was always elegant. The dining room was the center of Elyce's home, physically and spiritually. And like Abraham and Sarah's tent, her house was always open to everyone. And as a true Rebbitzin, she cared for her congregation deeply. Rabbi, you remember how she would reach out to people who needed help and comfort and solace. Sometimes she did it overtly, other times quietly, but always genuinely and with compassion. As an educator, she challenged her students and built lasting personal connections with them. And she was a master at inspiring lay congregants to become teachers. Some of the teachers she cultivated are still teaching in our school today. In fact, Elyce, you said, is the one who first invited Toby Fellman to teach. And of course, Toby eventually became not only the grandmother of the school, as you put it, but a beloved and irreplaceable icon for the whole congregation. Rabbi, you said Elyce was an educator 24/7. It was in her bones, in her soul. Leora and Yaniv, you both remember how she used to work with you on your writing and your reading, pushing you even to become better. And you both became excellent readers and writers thanks to her coaching. In fact, Leora, you said you remember staying up late into the night as a kid reading under the covers because she inspired you so. And Yaniv, apparently you got to be such a sharp writer that your sixth grade teacher called you out for a paper you turned in saying it was too good for a sixth grader to have written. Or maybe your Ema was actually the one who wrote it, but who's counting? That was a long time ago. As the educator here at Temple, Elyce pushed her students to take their Jewish education seriously. And that included her own children. No exceptions, just because you were doubly connected to the temple brass. Yaniv, you said she used to kick you out of class every week and send you to the principal's office. Leora, your dad did the same to you. You guys must have built quite a reputation. She must have been a great teacher because, Yaniv, you said you've gotten text in the last few days from so many of her old students telling you how much she meant to them and how she made temple fun and meaningful for them. Rabbi, you and Elyce led congregational trips to Israel together. She helped you remember people's names. She had a nifty trick for that. She did everything and more. As you put it, she was mamash ezer kenegdo, a true helpmate to you. Your beshert, your partner in your sacred work for this community in every possible way. Your marriage, you said, was destined to be, in a genuine mystical sense. After all, you said, what are the chances that a kid from Israel would come to America and meet a woman with the same last name? A last name which not coincidentally means God is my helper. God brought you and Elyce together. And you were the perfect helpers for each other and for this congregation. Elyce leaves a beautiful legacy to her family, her congregation, and to the world. She taught us patience and kindness and compassion. She taught us how to be welcoming and gracious and how to say thank you. Her thank you notes and phone calls were legendary, and they made you feel so appreciated. She taught us generosity. Yanivu said gift giving was one of your mom's love languages. She adored giving gifts, and she always chose them carefully. She taught us the value of deep personal friendships and how to be a good friend. She taught us to love Judaism and taught us by her own example how to live it. She taught us how a passionate, devoted, and caring teacher can touch children's lives profoundly and change them for the better. And she taught us what it means to live a mission-driven life, to follow her calling, to serve her community, to share the light and the Spirit of God inside her with all who were blessed to know her. Thus said Adonai, I accounted to your favor the devotion of your youth, your love as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness, in a land not sown. Zichrona livracha. May her memory be for a blessing. Yaniv.
Hey everyone. Some of you probably remember the last time I was up here reading prepared words. It was 13 years ago at my bar mitzvah, reading terrible jokes only a 12-year-old could think of. It was 13 years ago that we were surrounded by friends and family as this congregation accepted me as a young Jewish man. 13 years ago we were here with Uncle Louie, Bubby, Pops, and my mom. They aren't here with us today, but even though they aren't here, we are. And we honor them by remembering them every single day. Although there are tears today, tomorrow there will be laughs. That's how it works in our family. Memories that once reminded us of grief now bring smiles to our faces as we remember the incredible family that we are. My mom was an anchor. My emo was an anchor. To our family, she kept us all grounded. When my father was whisked away at a moment's notice for an emergency, Ema stepped up. She was there for me and Leora and my father once he returned home. A typical weekend for my father consisted of services on Friday night, services on Saturday morning, a wedding on Saturday night, and religious school on Sunday. We could probably expect a funeral somewhere in there last second. Ema was there for all of it. And thank God for sitter service, otherwise I would have had to sit through all those services. But she was there every step of the way. Not only was she an anchor for our family, but also for the Temple Azriel congregation. If you're here today or you're participating virtually, there likely isn't anything I can say that you don't already know. If you're here, you are here because this amazing, talented, beautiful woman impacted your life. My phone has been filled with messages from her former students letting me know that she was a source of joy for them immediately upon entering Temple. The friends she made at Temple, while making small talk at an oneg or while working as principal of the religious school, will always remember her beaming smile and wonderful sense of humor. To my father, she was everything. She was his biggest fan and his biggest critic. When she didn't like a sermon, she absolutely told him that she didn't like the sermon. My dad says he doesn't know how any rabbi can function without a spouse like her, providing him with helpful acronyms like KISS, keep it short, stupid, Nonetheless, speaking from personal experience and speaking for all of you, I don't remember a single time when he kept it short. But my mom never missed an opportunity to support him and provide him with the love he needed to persevere as a rabbi. Without my mom, you would have seen my father show up in clothes that don't fit or match. Without my mom, the Rabbi Azriel you know would not be Rabbi Azriel. Gabe and Mia. Oh, Gabe and Mia. Those little troublemakers. Nothing on this earth brought a bigger smile to my mother's face than seeing those kids run around our house. She took so much pride in being their bubby, spoiling them against Leora's wishes, and doing everything she could to get Leora to bring them over. Hearing Gabe and Mia ask questions about their bubby right now is so hard, but I can't wait until they're older and we can explain just how amazing of a woman she was. Our home on Walnut Street was never only our home. The door to our house has always been wide open for members of the congregation to enjoy Passover with us, religious school parties, and for people to just stop by and talk. My Ima loved having every single one of you over at our house. Every single one of you. Our house is lined with Judaica like shofars, dreidels, and Shabbat candles. After Leora moved out, my mom waited approximately 32 seconds before turning her old room into a state-of-the-art scrapbook room. This woman would spend all hours of the day in there. And since it was right across the hall from my room, I remember falling asleep to the sound of her cutting and pasting. What I would give for one more night like that. Those scrapbooks were filled with so many memories from so many places. From Asia to Europe to Kauai. She made friends everywhere she went. Good friends. She traveled the world with my father, experiencing different cultures, and getting out of her comfort zone was something she fully embraced. I was fortunate enough to travel to Kauai for the high holidays with my parents in October and was able to see firsthand how easy it is for her to make an impact on people. They spend 2 weeks with this congregation every year, and they treated my mom and my father as if they were there for services every week. Everyone knew my name and my degrees and my job before I could even reach out for a handshake. I think she liked talking about me a little bit, and I'm fine with that. Ima's love extended well beyond the congregation of Temple Israel. The entire Jewish community in Omaha was lucky to have a piece of my mom. I keep hearing from people I haven't seen in years, or people I've never met, letting me know how much my mom meant to them. I hear stories about how my mom helped their child with bar mitzvah prep, that she helped someone convert to Judaism, and that she was the first one to call them after a crisis. My mom was never afraid to voice her opinion, and she definitely had a lot of opinions. When she saw injustice, she spoke up. I was recently told a story about when she visited a synagogue in Turkey. She witnessed a man passing out Havdalah spices to all of the men in attendance, ignoring the women. When he sat down, my mom stood up and grabbed the rest of the spices and handed them out to the women. Her reasoning was that Judaism is a religion where 100% of the people participate, not 50%. She was a progressive, she was a fighter, and she was happiest when others were happy. She was damn proud to be Jewish, and she was a damn good mom. I'll love you forever, Ima.
Take a moment now for silent reflection. Please rise.
ותנוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Elyce Azriel, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say together, Amen.
Amen. Please join me in saying Mourner's Kaddish in Elyce's memory. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye decho beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabba mevorach le'alam ulal me almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God grant peace to all who mourn and comfort those who are bereaved. May Elyce Azriel's memory always be for a blessing. We say together, Amen. Amen. Before Cantor concludes, I would like to remind you all of the virtual Shiva Minyan this evening, which will take place on Zoom at 7 o'clock p.m. You can find the address on the Temple Israel website. This will be an opportunity for participants to share brief memories of Elyce with her family and with our community, and we invite you to join us for that. Also, at the conclusion of the service today, if you would please remain in your seats until Rabbi Azriel and his family have the chance to exit the sanctuary, and then exit at a safe social distance from each other, we would appreciate it.
In the rising of the sun, we remember. In the blowing of the wind, we remember. In the opening of buds, we remember. We remember. lost and sick at heart,